huge video this. I am really excited for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the video that could actually help us decipher who is going to win the league. I believe that whatever business is done in January is going to play a significant effect on who ultimately lifts the Premier League title. Can you do me a favour, just before we get into it? If you like this style of video, will you just give it a like, just so I can monitor it to see if you like what we're trying to do here. And if you do, I'll do more like this. And equally, if it doesn't really resonate and doesn't get the likes, then we will certainly slow down on this sort of content. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. So we are looking at the transfer window as a whole. We have given every single Premier League club the due diligence that they deserve. We have analysed where they are strong. We've analysed the weaknesses. We've analysed the manager, and we've analysed the players that are readily available. We have therefore concluded the player that your club needs to sign in order to have as fruitful and prosperous a second half of the season as possible. Now, we're going to start with Liverpool, and I've given this one a lot of thought. And to be totally frank with you, I am in a quandary because I don't know quite what position they need to strengthen the most. I am torn. I think Jurgen Klopp is a genius. I think the way Liverpool have been playing is truly sensational. They have blown my mind. They are a dazzling team, and Jurgen Klopp is one of the best to have ever done it. However, there is room for improvement, and there are two positions that I believe can be looked at. I'm still on the fence. The two positions that I think we need to look at are centre-forward and central midfield. Now, ultimately, Liverpool don't struggle to score goals, but I believe that the profligacy of Darwin Núñez is a problem. The geezer misses sitter after sitter, and I think that could be a problem. There has been no dramatic improvement. The player that he was when he signed for Liverpool 18 months ago is still the player that he is today. I haven't seen the elevation in his career. I haven't seen the elevation in his performances, and I still believe that the rough diamond who is full of chaos is the player that he was when he arrived. Is he ultimately going to be fit to lead the line for Liverpool, for this glorious Liverpool team, to follow in the footsteps of some of the best strikers to have ever done it? Can he, Darwin Núñez, be their Suarez, their Torres, their Rush, their Hunt, their St. John, their Fowler? I'm not sure. We can use a case study here. Think about that game against Newcastle where Liverpool were devastatingly good. Truly sensational. One of the most iconic performances. A performance, in fact, in which they broke records. XG stats blown out of the water by Jurgen Klopp's brilliance. However, we must acknowledge the performance of Darwin Núñez. It was woeful. People will be kind. People will say that he brought a lot to the team. People will say that he is a striker that can be selfless and whatever else. But let us face the facts. The facts are, he had 8 shots on goal, 5 on target. More than the entire Newcastle team. The geezer didn't score a goal. He himself had a 1.16 XG and didn't score. The highest any player has ever had without registering a goal. Now look, if Núñez can start converting these chances even at a fairly average rate, he doesn't need to be sublime. If he could just put away a decent percentage of the chances that are presented to him, he is going to be a brilliant striker for Liverpool. And Liverpool will win the league. The question is, can he? Can he find that form? Can he hit the back of the net when it most matters? If you believe he can, they don't need to sign anyone else. If you believe that he can't, but it doesn't matter because the weight that Liverpool have in front of goal will ultimately smooth over his mistakes, then they don't need to sign anyone. However, if you think that the lack of ruthlessness in his finishing is going to cost Liverpool the league, surely this is Klopp's one opportunity to put it right. I was so close to saying that they needed to sign another centre-forward. And on some level, I think they do, but I think they can get away with it with Darwin Núñez, primarily because of the sheer brilliance of Mohamed Salah. The sheer guarantee of Mohamed Salah allows Darwin Núñez to be fairly wasteful in front of goal. Salah is a get-out-of-jail card. Salah is a cheat code. Salah allows Núñez to miss. And therefore, I think there are enough goals in this Liverpool team. So, to the midfield. Endo, Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones, McAllister, they have all been truly brilliant this season at various points. And Curtis Jones in particular deserves a mention here. He has elevated to a level I didn't think were possible. Truly brilliant, excellent player for Liverpool. Done everything that Klopp has asked him to do and has taken games by the scruff of the neck. He is Liverpool. He is Liverpool's midfield. And I think he deserves such praise. As does Endo. Again, I didn't anticipate him being this good. I didn't anticipate him scoring the calibre of goal that we have seen him score. Again, it's worked. But I just wonder if there is enough consistency in this midfield. I know that I always bang on about it. Liverpool fans think that I am incorrect because I always focus on their midfield. At the beginning of the season, I said it wasn't possible for them to win the league because of the destruction that happened to that previous midfield. The sheer demolition that happened in one window to the pre-existing midfield meant I didn't think it were capable to win the league this year. I was wrong. They can do it. But I just think that a replenishment in there, somebody to not necessarily take anyone's position away, but just to add an option to Jurgen Klopp as the season progresses, as they go deeper in cup competitions, is the idea of signing a top-tier midfielder who is proven in the Premier League more appealing than signing a top-tier centre-forward. And when you think about what's more possible, I think the central midfielder is more possible. They believe in Darwin Núñez. They aren't ultimately going to replace him mid-season. But could they bring in the player I'm suggesting here, João Paulinho, to amplify their quest for the title? I think so. Therefore, I'm going Liverpool need to sign João Paulinho this window. Right, next up is Nottingham Forest. Now, I know this is fresh in the memory, but I think their keeper, Matt Turner, is dodgy. Really, really dodgy. And Nuno Espirito Santo has gone in there and changed the culture of the club almost immediately. It is incredible the impact that he has had. Winning away at St James's Park, winning at home against Manchester United is significant. And they are now looking up. Nottingham Forest, I believe, for the first time since their re-arrival into the Premier League, feel like a Premier League club. They are looking up the table, and there is a glass ceiling if they have Turner in goal. We've seen how dodgy he can be time and time again. And, in my opinion, there is an obvious replacement. The answer to Nottingham Forest woes, the answer to all of their prayers, and the answer to who Nottingham Forest should sign this window, it's Aaron Ramsdale. Aaron Ramsdale is not going to get any game time at Arsenal. Whether he deserves it or not is a completely different question. I rate Ramsdale. I rate Ramsdale higher than I rate Raya. But it's almost irrelevant. He has spoken himself out of an opportunity. Mikel Arteta clearly favours David Raya. And ultimately, for Aaron Ramsdale to have any hope of securing his services in Germany for 2024's Euros, I think he needs to move. Forest could be the perfect club for him. When you think about Ramsdale's limitations, his own admitted words, where he speaks about his own limitations, they won't be under the microscope at Forest the way they are at Arsenal. But Forest are an impressive club, moving in the right direction with some genuine star quality players. Think about Morgan Gibbs-White. He is elite, or at least borderline elite. So Aaron Ramsdale going to Forest makes so much sense to me. Can you see this one happening? Next up is Luton Town. What a club. What a manager Rob Edwards is. And I really hope they stay up. I love the way they play. They feel to me like a modern day crazy gang. It's so impressive. I love the two up front. I love the tenacity with which they play. I love the intensity of Kenilworth Road. And I really hope it works out for them. The one quality that I think they are lacking, know-how, nous, experience, proven Premier League calibre players. Just somebody else to do the Ross Barkley thing. What Ross Barkley has done since he's gone into that midfield is very impressive. I think they need a little bit more of that. So you've got to look around. A player that is proven in the Premier League, knows what the Premier League is about, has played at the very top level. Who is that? The answer, I think they should sign Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer wouldn't have to move house. I've really thought about this. I don't think Eric Dyer would have to move house. When you think about where the Tottenham players live, the Tottenham training ground to Luton, very easy commute. Eric Dyer gets no game time at Tottenham. We have heard Ange Postecoglou say the words that he isn't really in his plans. We know that Ange Postecoglou is open to letting Eric Dyer leave. He isn't particularly fussed about keeping him at the club. There is no game time for him. And I think Luton could really do with having a player of his quality, someone who's a fighter, someone who gets stuck in, but also someone who brings a knowledge and a belief to that team. The experience is as valuable as the player himself. Next up's Everton. Everton have done so well this season. They are lacking, though, one particular quality: a bagsman. Dominic Calvert-Lewin cannot keep fit, and the answer is there, staring us in the face. Sean Dyche knows what to do. Everyone associated with Everton knows what they need. The answer is quite clearly Dom Solanke. Dominic Solanke would go to Goodison Park and ping him in, no doubt. He would score in front of the Gladys Street. The Gladys Street would love him. And I think from a club like Bournemouth, despite their own aspiration, I think Everton are a big enough club with enough clout to prize a player like Dom Solanke away from Bournemouth, even in the January transfer window. Oh, and you don't know what you got till it's gone when you find paradise. You know that song? That song was written for Marco Silva and the Craven Cottage faithful. They say you don't know what you got till it's gone, but guess what? In certain circumstances, you do know what you've got. You knew when it went that it was brilliant. You knew when it went that you shouldn't let it go, and now it's gone. You can't get it back, but guess what? In the January transfer window, you can. What Fulham need to do is bring back Alexander Mitrovic. He is so obviously suited to the Premier League. We know that he's a guarantee. We know that he will elevate that Fulham team. We know that the fans will love him, despite the fact that it went a little bit sour. I am sure they would forgive him. He would land back in that Fulham team. He would score bundles of goals. And ultimately, it's the answer. Even if it doesn't sit well with Fulham fans, even if it is slightly unpalatable, I know that they don't like the way that he treated the club. I know that they were frustrated with him for what happened at Manchester United in the Cup last year. But ultimately, they sign Mitrovic, they go up at least 4 places in the league. I'm sure they'll make it happen. Brighton. Now, again, I was toying with various different positions here. I thought a defender could come in because they are leaky. They concede goals. They were really struggling, weren't they, at the back? But I think what they actually need is the spark, the creativity. And with Mitoma injured, they are lacking. They are lacking that intuition, that clever silk, the originality, the keenness in the past, somebody that can do things other mere mortals cannot even see. Who can be their new Mitoma? I think the answer is Emil Smith-Rowe. Smith-Rowe would do so well at Brighton, I'm convinced. I think De Zerbi would love him. We know that there's a player there, and let's face it, the team that Arsenal are today, the options that Arsenal have available, I don't think Smith-Rowe is the answer. If you're vying for the league, are you really going to turn to Emil Smith-Rowe? I think he's a very good player. There was a time fairly recently where Chelsea were linked with him. I wanted him. I think he's a good player. But is he the best? Is he capable of replacing a player like Gabriel Martinelli to win you the game? My inclination is no. I think Brighton could be the perfect club for him. And I think his career could really be resurrected there. Brentford is so easy, isn't it? 2 and 2 does make a Christmas cake with regard to Brentford. 2 and 2 makes a Christmas cake. What am I saying here? Brentford need to. Everyone knows. They need to keep Ivan Toney. It's not about who do they sign. It's about keeping the player that they have that is far and away the best player at that club. Far and away the best player maybe to have ever played for that club. They need to keep him. They need to keep him happy. With him, they stay up. Without him, they potentially get dragged into a relegation battle and go down. That is the significance of Ivan Toney. That is the importance of keeping him at the club. I am convinced not only will he hit the ground running and score goals, but he will elevate the entire tide. He will raise the tide of that club. The fans will rise. They will be galvanised when they see him leading the line. The players will love him. They will be so happy to see him back in that side, and every defender in the Premier League will be fearful of Ivan Toney lining up against them with a point to prove. What Brentford need to do, and Thomas Frank needs to work his magic, is keep Ivan Toney. Tottenham. Now, it really does hurt me to say this, but what Tottenham need to do, what is best for them, for the furtherance of Tottenham Hotspur, which couldn't ever be further from my agenda, but what they need to do is to sign, it's ridiculous, I'm talking about the Chelsea captain here, Conor Gallagher. Now that is obviously what Tottenham need to do, looking at it through the lens that favours them, which I'm not inclined to do, but Chelsea have some say over this. Chelsea can obviously not allow this to happen. Not only is Conor Gallagher clearly the best midfielder at Chelsea, but he is also currently our captain. Conor Gallagher has obviously been one of our most important and consistent players this season. His performances have at times been sensational, and he has far outweighed the contribution of the £250 million midfield that were assembled by these idiots upstairs. You can talk about Caicedo being a brilliant player if you like. You can talk about Enzo Fernandez being a brilliant player if you like. I'll disagree on both fronts. Conor Gallagher is, however, brilliant, and somehow, hatefully, odiously, disgustingly, despicably, heinously, Chelsea are considering selling Conor Gallagher to Tottenham. Now, it's actually disgusting that Chelsea would even countenance this. It is hurtful, and it should never, ever occur. But these idiots in charge will consider doing it, because Conor Gallagher represents nothing but profit on our FFP issue. And I tell you what, nothing says panic about FFP like selling your captain to a rival. And it's hurtful. It really is. I'll tell you now, a good mate of mine, a geezer that I spent a lot of time with at football. I was in Moscow in 2008 with him. I was in Munich in 2012 with him. He's got 3 sons who all come to Chelsea. His father goes to Chelsea, and the oldest son is now going on his own, right? He's going home and away on his own. They are a Chelsea family. I got a text message from him. I'm going to read it to you to just give you some insight into what this transfer of Gallagher means. I won't set foot inside Stamford Bridge again while they're in charge if this happens. This Gallagher transfer is so pivotal in our history, Raw. Even if people don't rate him as a player, what he represents, what it says about our academy, selling him to Tottenham is actually unbelievable. You really couldn't make it up. These geezers in the boardroom are a disgrace. That's how people see this setup. That's what it means to people. But weirdly, it's actually going to happen, isn't it? And I tell you what, obviously, I know that I'm biased. I know that I'm a tribal football fan, but I think that is the point of football fandom. We are irrational. Football fandom, in its very essence, is irrational. And to try and rationalise this doesn't really make any sense, but I'm going to try to. Obviously, everything that I've said about the way I feel about selling Gallagher is about emotion. It isn't about what he'll bring to their team. So let's briefly analyse that. Firstly, we'd be losing our best midfielder and we'd be losing our captain. So we would be depleted hugely. But think about the team that Tottenham would become. Think about the options that suddenly Postecoglou would have available, rather than having to turn to maybe Sarr or Oliver Skip or Yves Bissouma, who is a liability, by the way. People like to talk about Bissouma in a different way because he had 6 good games at the beginning of the season. But he's a liability. He really is. He's sent off far too often and he costs his team. Suddenly, Postecoglou isn't relying on the likes of Højbjerg or Skip. He's relying on Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher for Postecoglou would be a dream come true. He would love Gallagher, and Gallagher will get in the England side going into 2024, I'm convinced. Right, we're now talking about a club, and I have absolutely no idea who they're going to sign. So all I can do is sing this song. Let me tell you, uno, I need a miracle, I need a miracle. Who's that? Sheffield United. I don't know how they survive. I don't know what they need. I don't know what they do. And I think knowing the club the way that we do, the way that it's being run, the way that the owners are feeling about the club, they're not going to do anything spectacular this window. They just need a miracle. Newcastle United, what do they need? Well, they obviously need a new manager. I don't like to say I told you so, but on this one, I did, in fact, tell you so. Eddie Howe, struggling. Who saw that coming? But the player that they are ultimately going to sign, I am sure it's straight out the copybook of 2 and 2 making a Christmas cake. They are obviously going to sign from PIF-owned Al Hilal to PIF-owned Newcastle United. If that isn't insider trading, I don't know what is. Manchester United. Now, this is difficult because they basically need a player in every single position. But the player that I think Manchester United should sign, and like I say, I'm trying to be really fair on this video. I'm trying to see it through the lens of the club, through the lens of the season ticket holder in the Stretford end. Who should Manchester United sign? I think the player that they should sign, and it is certainly the player that Sir Alex Ferguson would have signed when Manchester United were great. The player is Michael Olise. That boy has it all. He is sensational. He is Hollywood. He is dazzling. He is razzmatazz, and he belongs playing in front of the Stretford end. Can you imagine the Stretford end singing for Michael Olise? It's so in keeping with who Manchester United once were. The way that they went and signed a precocious young talent from Everton in the form of Wayne Rooney. The way that they went and signed Dwight York when he was doing the business at Aston Villa. The way that they went and signed Cristiano Ronaldo. The way that they went and signed Eric Cantona from their bitter rivals Leeds United, who bought them the Premier League, who bought the Premier League with him from Ellen Road to Old Trafford. Michael Olise is exactly the kind of player that they should be signing. Far better than Anthony, and he has the world at his feet. He is going to be a superstar. Imagine him on one wing, Garnacho on the other, and then all they need to do is sign a half-decent forward and they're away. Manchester City. What do you buy at a team that have everything? I've actually got the answer. What they need to do is sign Just Sold My Car to Lucas Paqueta. Just sold my car to Lucas Paqueta. Paqueta is exactly what they need. It would go a long way to smoothing over the mistake of signing Nunez and Kovacic. Kovacic hasn't delivered. as I suggested, Núñez hasn't landed at all. I think Lucas Paquetá is exactly what they need. Any more injuries? If Kevin De Bruyne, I know he's back, but if he's injured again, their title challenge could be drastically affected. So they need to make a move, and I think they need to make it fast. Lucas Paquetá is exactly what they need. Think of the silk of that boy. The ball that he played over the top recently for Jared Bowen against Manchester United, he played it over the top, and it is more comparable to a golf shot than it is a football pass. The ball went up and it landed. You know the way an excellent golfer will play a golf shot and the ball will drop and it will die and it will land perfectly on the green next to the hole. That is what he did for Jared Bowen. He is truly sensational. His contribution to West Ham winning silverware can never be overstated. And I think he is having a season to catch the eye of Manchester City again. I think Manchester City really do need to go for Paquetá. If they get him, it could be curtains for everybody chasing them for the league. 4 in a row incoming. Maybe. Right, so with Paquetá going, what do they need to do? They need to find a solution. David Moyes needs an answer. Who is David Moyes going to sign? I've got the answer here. We got a diamond called Ross Buckley, a Scouser who comes from Wavertree. It has to be, doesn't it? David Moyes linking up with Ross Barkley. Ross Barkley playing so well. Surely Ross Barkley could contribute really well to West Ham United. Burnley obviously need to sign Sergio Gomez, don't they? We all know that. Burnley need to sign Sergio Gomez. He has a pre-existing relationship with Vincent Kompany and he's getting no game time at Man City. Get it done, Vincent. Chelsea. I mean, I barely know where to start with this, but I will go, optimistically, I don't even know. Osimhen is the player I'll go for. But I could think of half a dozen players that we need to sign. The problem is people will say you've spent loads of money already. Surely the job of a good coach would be to coach these players, get the players that are there working already. Mauricio Pochettino signed £400 million worth of players. Surely his responsibility is to get them playing. The problem is, I don't think that we have signed players to amplify the first team. We haven't signed players to improve the first team. So what we need to do is sign players that are ready here and now. And I think Osimhen would be the statement signing that we need. And also, we need somebody who's a finisher. You know, Nicholas Jackson, I don't think he's as bad as everyone makes out, but he is not a finisher. So we've got a problem. Wolverhampton Wanderers, Gary O'Neill, what a man, what a king. He deserves nothing but praise. I love that man. What does he need to do in this transfer window? I believe that what he needs to do is similar to what I said Brentford need to do with Ivan Toney. They need to keep their important players. Neto is so important to Gary O'Neill. He's so important to Wolverhampton Wanderers. There are a lot of big clubs sniffing around him. We know that Arsenal have been a fan of his for ages. So what I think Wolverhampton Wanderers need to do, it's not about who can they sign. We've heard Lopetegui talk a few months ago about the issues that Wolverhampton Wanderers will have signing players. So I don't think we can be too optimistic here. What I think Gary O'Neill needs to do at Wolves is to keep Neto, fight off the advances of big sides, Champions League clubs. It won't be easy. Arsenal. Now, this is difficult. Again, I really did think about this, and I've actually sought some counsel here. I've spoken to two Arsenal friends. I've spoken to James from AFTV. I've spoken to Harry Symeou, and I've taken their counsel. I haven't taken their suggestions, but I've asked them how they're feeling about their club. I've gone left field. I've gone rogue. The player that I think Arsenal need to sign, I think they need a backup winger. I'm going for Paulo Dybala. There is a £10 million release clause from Roma, and I think this could work. Remember, last year, Arsenal were considering signing Joao Felix. Okay, he came to Chelsea. We know how that worked out, but they have been looking at players like that. They are open to signing players in this circumstance, players of this ilk in this circumstance. So I think Dybala could be interesting because their fans will be so happy and excited to see a player of his quality arriving to back up their front line. But he's experienced, and Arsenal are a young team. A player of his experience coming into the Premier League, desperate to win silverware here, I can see this one really working out. You know, with Dybala, they'll get a player who can play across the front line. Somebody who can play with Martinelli or someone that can play instead of Martinelli. Someone that can play with Saka or someone that can play instead of Saka. Maybe even someone who can play with Jesus or instead of Jesus. He is an excellent signing. He would be brilliant for Arsenal, I'm sure. And it would change the whole complexion of that Arsenal front line. It would really bring something new and a player of that quality, with that reputation, and also with that prestige, with that gravity, with that name, that iconic name that is Paulo Dybala. I think that could be exactly what Arsenal need. Crystal Palace need replenishments in the middle. And I think Calvin Phillips could be the answer. Calvin Phillips needs to get out of Man City. You know, Guardiola has told us that he's just not the answer for him. He doesn't fancy him. There is nothing about Calvin Phillips that works for Man City. So he needs a new challenge. He needs the opportunity to impress Gareth Southgate ahead of the Euros. So what he really needs is Premier League football. He needs a guaranteed start. Where can he get that? I was thinking it could work for West Ham, but then I thought Ross Barkley could be a better fit in terms of replacing Paqueta. I've gone for Crystal Palace here. I think Crystal Palace could be a good opportunity for Calvin Phillips to guarantee himself Premier League starts ahead of Germany 2024. Bournemouth. I've gone for Ben Davies. I don't know why, really. It just sort of feels right. Ben Davies? What do you reckon? Ben Davies to Bournemouth. Just works, doesn't it? Ben Davies at Bournemouth. Like, imagine it. If I was really good at computers here, I'd get an image of Ben Davies and I'd put him in the Bournemouth kit. It just works. Davies to Bournemouth. You with me? Aston Villa. Now, they are such an impressive club, and Unai Emery is truly brilliant. So I'm now thinking of the player that they need to solidify themselves as a Champions League club. And I'm looking across their squad, and they look so strong. There is depth, there is everything that you want, and they have an elite level manager. There is one area that I believe they could do with some replenishments, partly through injury, partly through just being light at the back in terms of quality. I've gone for a centre-half. And the statement that they could make by signing Jared Braithwaite, I think would be huge for Aston Villa. Remember, Aston Villa are a massive club, Euro champions in 82, and the Holt End is rocking again like it's 1982. Unai Emery is bringing the good times back. They need to make a statement, and they need a centre-half. I think the best thing that they could do would be to sign Jared Braithwaite. Right, there we have it. That is every club. That is the 20 Premier League clubs transfer strategy sorted out. You are welcome. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And please do me a favour. If you enjoy this video, this style of video, just give it a like, just so I can monitor it. Really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.